One of the biggest reasons to play Arkham City is the unique atmosphere and aesthetic. I really think that that's where a lot of its charm comes from and makes it stand out, compared to other comic book adaptations.
And the only one who can save this city is a creature of the night.
If the art direction of Arkham City wasn't as distinctive as it is, I highly doubt the game would have been anywhere near as successful as it was, no matter how good the story or gameplay elements are. Arkham City is an amazing mix between modern and vintage Art Deco architecture, held together by a strong noir-type storytelling atmosphere. Batman here is on par with old-school detectives in black and white movies, fighting mobsters, femme fatales, and narrating the whole thing in his head. Fittingly, the game takes place at night and in winter, with light snow falling and partially covering the surface. Choosing winter as a setting was a great choice, and not a lot of games have such a setting, and there is something very comfortable about winter nights. Have you ever looked at the sky when it's snowing? It's different. It has this light grayish look even at night. The developers managed to capture this in Arkham City, and it makes the game a lot more unique. Arkham City is the main attraction of this game. As I said before, I highly doubt that this game would have been nearly as successful if Arkham City wasn't the main location and didn't look the way it does. Because, sure, the previous game, Arkham Asylum, was a success, and that took place inside of an asylum that had limited space and cool gothic art direction, but it was still very limited. The asylum mostly looked like a modern asylum. However, Arkham City's art direction is timeless. Despite having a very strong vintage Art Deco vibe and aesthetic, it could also easily take place in the modern day, or the 80s, or the 70s. We don't really know when it takes place, which is faithful to the comics and part of the beauty of Arkham City and the Batman franchise in general. This opens so many possibilities in terms of storytelling, visual storytelling, and gameplay elements. To me, Arkham City is comparable to Rapture from BioShock. Sure, BioShock has an incredible story, fantastic gameplay and beautiful visuals, but what makes these visuals so special are not the graphics but the setting. Rapture is a work of art and beauty and one of the most breathtaking gaming locations ever made. Whenever I replay BioShock, I do it for the visuals and the city rather than the story. As amazing as it is, because the level and attention to details dedicated to it by the developers is simply mind-blowing. And I feel the same about Arkham City. Despite the game expecting you to be doing a lot of rooftop parkouring and gliding, they did not ignore the lower levels of the city. No matter whether you're in the air or down in the dark, shady neon-lit streets, it always looks fantastic. Another aspect is how cinematic the game feels. No matter where you are, just stopping and taking a look at your surroundings, especially if done from a rooftop overlooking the city, feels almost like a scene from a movie or a comic book. I know how hard to achieve this look can be, so the fact that it works so well here means the developers deserve even more praise. That's why, in my opinion, Arkham City is more than just a Batman game. It's an inspiring work of art the same way BioShock is. Arkham City has a lot of gameplay mechanics that all come together perfectly to form a solid basis. One of the things you'll be doing the most is gliding from one rooftop to the other or down into the streets. You can also use this mechanic to attack enemies in various ways. In Arkham City, it might appear as if Batman is being hunted by everyone, but in truth, you're the hunter. Through your earpiece, you can listen to what the criminals of the different factions think about Batman, and it's clear that most of them are terrified of him. None of them know who he really is, and they all think he's some kind of demon from hell. Attacking enemies directly or surprising them out of nowhere can cause panic and screams of terror. Considering that Batman has to face characters such as Solomon Grundy, Two-Face, or the Joker, all of whom are much more violent and deadly, we tend to forget that many of the citizens consider Batman to be just as terrifying and mysterious. And it's not just the criminals but normal citizens. There will be multiple moments where you will come across political prisoners in Arkham City, and when first confronted with Batman, they will be afraid and back away into a corner. The game offers you many ways to terrorize terrorize the criminal inmates of Arkham, silently picking them one by one as you lurk in the shadows and jump from one gargoyle to the other, or directly brutalize them, breaking all of their bones and throwing them from high-rise buildings. Batman never kills, of course, because he's far more sadistic than that. He enjoys breaking bones and paralyzing his victims. But this city is stalked by a terrifying horror, a creature that calls the night its home.
Don't kill me, man! Don't kill me! Don't kill me, man!
Which is without a doubt one of the reasons why they all fear him so much. That's why you have dozens of amazing gadgets at your disposal, from bat boomerangs that knock someone out to electric guns that electrocute enemies without killing them, but also open doors and gates when needed. Of course, let's not forget the classic smoke bomb that fills the air with smoke and gives you the chance to choke out enemies or beat them up while they are inhaling the smoke, shaking in their boots. For the Arkham games, Rocksteady developed a special type of combat system that is very free-flowing and rewards good timing. Usually during a fight there will be indicators telling or hinting at when to block a strike and when to hit back or perform a combo. This might sound very basic now, 14 years later, but back when the game came out, this was a fresh system and praised by almost everyone. It had a massive impact on games such as Assassin's Creed, Spider-Man, but most noticeably on the Lord of the Rings Shadow of Mordor and War franchise. In fact, playing Shadow of War or Mordor feels almost like playing a copy of a game out of the Batman Arkham franchise, except with swords and bows. Despite the fights mostly playing out the same, except for special boss encounters, it never feels boring or annoying, despite being repetitive. Repetition in games is often negative and rightfully criticized, however, I believe it's not always a bad thing. It all really depends on the game and how it handles the repetition. Arkham City does a fantastic job. There are so many different fighting combos and special moves that you can use and unlock that it makes you actually want to get into fights with enemies. The fighting feels very satisfying and rewarding. The combat is very fluid and fast.
And what do you do for a living?
Feels like a dance where you quickly move from one target to the other, which is interesting because originally this free flow system was supposed to be rhythm based. You had to punch and block based on certain sounds, and this original idea can still be felt when playing. There are a lot of nuances to this system. It might appear simple, but you can quickly get overwhelmed. Different types of enemies will require different types of tactics and combos. However, that doesn't mean that the game can't be challenging even on lower difficulties, but especially on higher ones. The inmates of Arkham City might be afraid of Batman, but they will still fight him or try to kill him first chance they get. Sometimes they start running away after you take down some of their comrades, but most of the time they do put up a fight. As the story progresses, the enemy types get more diverse and you will have to plan your attacks carefully. You can die quickly, and I made the mistake of underestimating some situations just because I got a bit too much into role-playing Batman and thinking that I'm actually a half-human demon bat from hell. Batman is a detective after all, not just a brute martial artist superhero. In many instances you will have to investigate crime scenes or the area in general to gather clues or information on your target or the situation. And this is one of the coolest features because it's not only tied to the story, gameplay and lore, but there are some genuinely amazing side missions that have you utilize this investigation feature. I don't want to spoil any story or side quest details, but I can say that the side missions here are handcrafted and don't feel like a chore at all. These are not the Ubisoft type missions where you have to collect a few thousand useless flowers for some achievement that offers no benefit at all. Which is not to say that there are no collectibles. They are here, but even they are tied to some of Batman's famous villains, such as the Riddler, and make sense within the lore of the game. Arkham City has a certain horror vibe that seems to be everywhere. The statues around the city look creepy, the buildings and streets are shady, propaganda flyers and posters have horrible messages, and the entire place is filled with evil. So fittingly, this can also be felt in the side activities, especially in some of the side missions that have you track serial killings or some even worse crimes. There are side missions that, despite being short, have really well made storylines and cinematic, not to mention some plot twists that you genuinely don't see coming. It's refreshing to play a game with such well-made side missions and side content, as this is an area that is usually disappointing in most games.
want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Arkham City is plagued by some of the darkest and vilest scum Gotham has to offer. It's a scary place to be, not just for all the innocent people that have been wrongfully accused and thrown into it, but also for the actual criminals. Because Arkham City is filled with pure evil. Evil that takes on many forms and shows no mercy. One such evil is a mysterious serial killer that is luring his victims into dark, shady alleys. Their screams echo through Arkham, and those who have witnessed his work are terrified to their bones. This man, this monster, doesn't just kill his victims. He takes their faces and identity. When his work is done, all that's left is a lifeless body with its face cut off. These murders didn't start in Arkham City. Gotham has been haunted by similar murders recently, with the press giving the murderer the nickname the Identity Thief. We can find a few of these bodies playing the game, and finding them also starts a side mission. Here we have to collect enough clues that will ultimately lead us to a dark alley where we can find an apartment. This apartment is pure horror story material and looks like it could be straight out of the Saw movies. It's dark, bloody, and creepy. You feel watched every step you take, and you can imagine the whole place smelling like rotten bodies. One of the darkest killers of Arkham City is the Calendar Man. For most of the game, he remains locked in a cell and doesn't pose a threat to Batman. However, what makes him truly creepy are the stories he tells when visiting him during various real-life holidays such as Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, Halloween, April's Fools, and so on. He is regarded as one of the most evil killers in Gotham's history. This is shown by how he is imprisoned within Arkham City, a place where even the most notorious criminals such as the Joker, Penguin, and Zsasz roam free. Many other criminals are wary of him, including Catwoman. Some, like the Joker, admire his work and attempt to use him for his intelligence, brutality, and showmanship, especially during the holidays. The stories he tells are chilling and nightmare fuel. He does so while staying calm, as if cutting his father into pieces is not a big deal. Another one is Victor Zsasz. Zsasz managed to hack into the phone lines in Arkham City and proceeded to call the payphones all over. When someone answered, Zsasz challenged them to answer his other calls. Once they failed, Zsasz hunted them down, killed them, and left their bodies in poses. Those attacks quickly grew into a rumor about the payphone killer. Inmates with any common sense learned to avoid the phones to keep Zsasz from hunting them down.